Welcome to Quit to Win, the show where we explore the moments people have to let go of destructive patterns, limiting identity, and the internal battle to build their life with purpose and clarity. Our today's guest is Jean Lopez, head coach of the U.S. Olympic Taekwondo team. Across four Olympic Games, architect of one of the most extraordinary family stories in Olympic history, with 5 years of Olympic medals, multiple world championships, the Guinness World Record, and the founder of Raising Champions, a framework helping parents use sports to build resilience, confidence, and high character children with a defining moment that made staying was no longer an option. In his words, after coaching thousands of athletes and family, he realized that the greatest coach in a child's life is often the parent. And once he understood that, he could no longer keep his focus inside the training hall. He didn't quit coaching, he expanded the mission. Jen, it's a pleasure and honor to have you on the show.
Pleasure meeting you. And I thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So you spent more than 3 decades inside one of the most elite environment in sport. What did you have to quit believing about where championship was actually made before you could see what was happening at home?
That's a really good question. For most of my young coaching career, I realized that, my focus was to train athletes to make them the best. Where they were jumping higher, where they were running faster, helping them, meet their potential from a talent perspective. And a lot of times I ran into the same issue, the same challenge. And that was where there was a certain friction point, a certain door that 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 some athletes were able to walk through and some athletes were not. And I thought I had to refine my coaching more and more, which, I always do. As a coach, you always try to be better and better and better. But I had to quit thinking about so much so what I was necessarily involved with and thinking that I could do it all to help the athlete be able to reach their dreams. I realized that I had to think of it differently and start to think about how the environment shapes the child, how the environment shapes the athlete. And so when I came to that point in realization, it made so much sense. And that's when I started to coach the parents just as much as I coach the athletes, because a lot of times well-intended parents, loving parents want the best for their children, but sometimes don't know what to say, when to say it, and how to say it when it comes to sports, especially sports, because that's my focus. But this can translate to every aspect of the relationship between parent and child. So that became my mission. That was a way that I had to kind of quit my old thinking to be able to shape this new way of seeing things, and how important that the environment shapes the student or the athlete. So from a coaching standpoint, we coach the athlete, right? And then and the parent builds the child, or builds the athlete as far as character and all the things that you're supposed to learn from sports. So that's what made me start this whole movement. That it's a new conversation, not a conversation that's really spoken about. All the kids, when they're talking to each other, they do talk about, my parents are pretty tough. Oh man, my parents yell at me when I don't win, and that's why my brother Steven, who is a two-time Olympic gold medalist and a five-time world champion, he's the greatest of all time in the sport. That's why it became such a mission of ours, because we thought every parent was very similar to my parents. And so we were assuming the same thing. And then when we started to realize little by little that, everyone has their own way of dealing with things, fortunately, we were blessed to have parents who really understood that they're not living through us, that they're giving us the opportunity to be able to, for us to fall when we have to fall, for us to, own the journey. And that made all the difference in the world.
Which this is really key, especially when you just make reference of the fact that they will learn living through us, about the fact that they allow you guys to go to tell them like being able to kind of put in what you need to put in and live out your best life. And it's really amazing, true, especially the fact that at first you actually more like thought what is applicable to you was applicable to all family, only to realize that my parents were so different compared to what other parents does when it comes to kind of mentoring their kid, a whole lot. And also you have You have coached athletes to the highest level of competition on the planet. What did working with family over 3 decades teach you about the difference between the child who thrives under pressure and the one who quietly burn out?
Right. Well, the statistics are that most kids in the United States, especially, that by the age of 13, most kids quit sports. I think it's about 70%.
Hmm.
it's not enjoyable for them. It's not, the pressure gets to be more intensified, and they start to rebel a little bit about anything that has to do with competition. And that's the time I feel is the most important, to have the structure and be able to have sports help develop things like sacrifice, like understanding what adversity is and overcoming them, understanding what discipline is, what self discipline is. And those are things that sports are supposed to teach you. However, when you don't have the buy in of the parent being in alignment with
Yeah.
the child and the coach and all the other people around the family, then it becomes something that a child feels like they can almost not bear.
Hmm.
And that's when they start to go, you know what, I'd rather not deal with it,
Yeah.
than to put myself in unnecessary situation where then the relationship between a parent and a child is not only damaged that in that moment, but damaged for their lifetime, because kids have a long memory. They don't forget. And when they go back, they start to think, that was not the best time of my life, when it's supposed to be the best time of their lives. um,
Yeah.
that's been my journey, and that's why I started, again, like I was saying, the Raising Champions movement, because it was something that I felt that needed to be discussed, and I wanted to change the paradigm, the shift. I wanted people to quit thinking the same way that they've been thinking for
Yeah.
so many generations, that the success is primarily binary. You either win or you lose. And that's not true. What Stephen and I have learned is that every opportunity for a child is an opportunity to win or to learn.
Yeah.
And with that philosophy, you can carry that on in every aspect of your life, Abania, and be at a place where you're really going to allow yourself to do all the things that you want to do without fearing all the negative things that can happen. Because when you're learning, there's no such thing as negative things. Everything happens for you instead of it
Yeah.
happening against you.
Yeah, amazing. This is really lovely, especially when you just make a person. Yeah, every opportunity when it comes to that sport, when it comes to doing that, is the fact that, yeah, you are either winning or you are learning. There is no room for failure, because the fact that it gets you better. And it's and just make a and that would just speak volumes to into the fact that if it was parents, yeah, being the parent are constant with them, sometimes they project the fear of, which if you didn't win, you fail, other than make reference of the learning aspect of it. And the statistics you just give just speak a whole lot of volume. 70% at age 13, it's really a whole lot. And this is really amazing. I thank you for what you do. And also, deciding to take everything you have laid out at the Olympic level and placing it in the hands of our parents is significantly identity shifts from coach to educator, from your training hall to the living room. What did you have to quit protecting about your identity as an elite coach to make that?
To be normal. Oh, that's you need to stop thinking about so much about because at the Olympic level, there is, everything is based on winning and losing. I mean, it really is. That's the way the whole culture is based on. So I had to make a mental shift of not seeing everything like a competition, and
Yeah.
seeing things as more of an experience, a very
Mm.
challenging adjustment. Because I'm a very competitive person. I love
Yeah.
competing. That's where I feel the most alive. But being able to focus that in the right channels, because for most of my life, competing at that level, it was the hallmark of my life. And so going from that to, just walking into the opening ceremonies with billions of people watching you on TV, representing your country, the exhilaration of putting everything on the line, it's something that it's 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 a beautiful experience, especially for those who love competition. You feel so alive, and so I've had to learn and understand that okay, yeah, well, that's great. You had that opportunity to be able to do that, and now it's a time to be able to help give back to people and educate people and let people know that, although competition is important, if you're in sport, and winning is the ultimate goal, that the most important thing is all the lessons that you learn along the way.
Mm.
Because if you don't have that mindset, then you will have burnout. If you don't have that mindset, then you're going to look back on those memories as bad memories as opposed to empowering
Mm.
memories. And so
Yeah.
So there was an adjustment there that I had to make as a coach. But however, that shift allowed me to really feel like a lot of purpose and meaning in what I'm doing with my life now.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Not just yeah, this is really lovely, especially more like shifting in just not just from winning alone, but the fact that the process of it alone now make you better. And thank you so much for sharing. And also creating the raising champion method require you to translate decades of elites experience into something parents could actually apply after a game. What did you have to quit as? I mean, parents already knew before you could build something genuinely useful for them.
Well, a lot of times I felt that quitting, that most athletes wanted to quit. In the United States, um, you get two mostly a few parents who think that, hey, you're not going to quit no matter what. I don't care. I'm not listening to you. You just do it. And then you have the other parents who, well, whatever the child wants, if the child doesn't want it, then,
Yeah,
who am I to push him? And so it's been a very difficult friction point, for most coaches and parents, because it's a very awkward conversation. And no one really has had the opportunity to be able to talk to the parents and go, look, this is from my experience. What I've learned is that the child doesn't necessarily want to quit the sport. They want to quit the feeling that they're having at that moment,
yeah.
the emotion after a child misses a goal, or misses, a basketball shot or whatever it is in sport, or having a bad grade, in school. They want to quit the emotion. They want to quit the feeling
Mm,
of frustration. They want to quit the feeling of feeling inadequate. They want to feel
yeah.
to quit the feeling of letting their parents down. That's really what the child is saying. I want to quit the situation, that moment. I want to quit this moment. But most of the time, what in Raising Champions we teach is that give it 48 hours, give it 24 hours, depending on how the child deals with
Yeah.
his emotions, and be able to connect with the child as opposed to correcting, or you should do this, or you shouldn't do that, or it doesn't matter, whatever you want, because that's not really meaningful conversation. A meaningful conversation is, hey, I understand how you can feel right now at this moment, but let's give it a little time, and then we can revisit it later when the emotion subside, and then be able to then talk about what it is that you really want to do. And if it means realigning yourself with something else, well, then let's talk about it and the reasons why.
Yeah.
But at least the child gets heard at that moment, and there's not emotion. Or it could be, yeah, no, I didn't want to quit. I just didn't like the way that I played. Okay, well
Yeah.
then let's look at that and see what we can do better for next time. And how much you want me involved, mom, or mom or dad, how much you want me involved, or how much you want to talk. Because some kids, they don't want to talk much. They just want to internalize things and
Yeah.
just kind of like let it go. Just like adults, some parents like to talk their problems through with others. Some people, it's just for them, it's just give it a little time and they're able to process it. And some people are a little bit of both. But you have to know your child, and you have to know when to be strong for your child, which should be all the time. But more importantly, know how to deal with your child in those breaking moments, those moments that they want to quit.
Amazing. Yeah, sometimes they don't want to, yeah, most times they don't want to quit. They just want to quit the emotion. And you have to be able to study them to know when to be strong for them and being able to kind of navigate them towards the right path. This is
Absolutely.
amazing. And also you have identified the car ride at home as one of the most important moments in your in youth sport. What do most well-meaning parents do in the car that quietly damage what just happened on the field?
Right. So a lot of times, the child has. Let's go through a scenario. The child just played a game of football or soccer, and missed a penalty shot and lost it for the game for the team. Let's just say they put that pressure on themselves. The parents, waiting for the child to get out of practice. The child comes in visibly upset, frustrated.
Yeah.
The first thing that most parents say, "You okay?" Or "Did you win?" Or "What happened?" And that's the last thing kids want to hear at that moment.
Yeah.
At that moment, they just want to be mostly left alone. They're trying to figure out how to process that experience. It's not that they're mad at the parent or the parent did something wrong, because a lot of times as parents we always want to make the things better for your children, and a lot of times that's more destructive than it is helping them, because they need to know how to manage their own emotions. They need to know how to deal with failure. perceived failure. Because if you have the right mentality, then you would know, hey, listen, okay, you didn't get it this time, but you'll get it next time. Because it goes with the same philosophy of either win or you learn. What'd you learn? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't position my foot right, or I did it, I overanalyzed it. Things like that. However, it's very similar to what we are talking about before. Before you correct, or before you ask how you're feeling with things that maybe the child is not ready to talk about, that sometimes being quiet and being silent and not really
Mm.
talking too much about the
The game.
game is the most important thing. Maybe the best thing to say at that moment is like, "Hey, son, are you hungry? Hey, where do you want to eat? Let's go get something to eat. I'm hungry." And you just go on with the conversation like nothing.
Yeah, nothing happened.
And then the child can come back and revisit it, or maybe you can revisit it after the emotions subside, and have a healthier conversation, and have a meaningful conversation, and take some data from that information that you exchange that you're having with your child, and be able to be a better parent for that child, and be a better support system for that child.
Yeah, amazing. This is really lovely. Yeah, not the questioning on the car, but you actually just, yeah, take away their mind from it at first to other things, and get to revisit it again some other time. This is really amazing. And also, you have seen children thrive and burn out at the highest level. What is the quiet signal, visible to an experience that the child is performing for their parents rather than just playing for themselves?
Yeah. Well, some of the signals, or some of the things that I pick up from parents when they feel like when the journey feels more like theirs instead of their children,
Yeah.
is when the parents are yelling from the sidelines really loud,
Oh,
when they're, being overbearing with the child's, making the kid feel like they can't make any mistakes without being corrected by the parent. The parent normally doesn't understand the boundaries between parent and being the coach. Um, Yelling at the child, whether they win or they lose, still yelling at them. Like, if they lose, why'd you lose? You know how many times that
yeah.
we've been at practice. You know how much money we spend on sport. You know how the sacrifice that I made. I took off work to come and see you, and that's how you play, really. And so when the parents are talking that way, it's a pretty good indication that the parent is doing it more for what they felt like they needed to live
Yeah.
through as a child, as opposed to helping their child be the best
Yeah.
version of themselves.
Mm,
And I've had to have a lot of conversations with the parent, and make them realize that if they continue with that trajectory, that at some point the child's going to start to decide for themselves that they don't want to do it anymore. If the
yeah.
child feels that you're doing it for them, then they're going to do it forever. If they feel like you're doing it for yourself, then there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of friction. And
Yeah. So true.
yeah, the problem with that is that you're not protecting the relationship, because that should be the number one objective. And every day, every moment, you're either shaping them or you're breaking them. What is it? And so, if you have that kind of mindset as a parent, just like a coach does with the athlete,
Yeah.
then you're going to see that with the parental support, with the environment that they provide, with connecting with the right coach, that you'll see that your child's going to blossom, and they're going to learn all the things that are important. Like I mentioned before in other interviews, the trophies, they collect dust. The medals you put away, but who your child becomes stays with them forever.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so
For sure.
so those are things that we have to think about as parents, is the long run. And is your child going to feel a failure because they don't make the national team? Are they going to feel a failure because they didn't win, or they're not, they didn't make it to a professional leagues? Or are they going to feel like a failure because they didn't win an Olympic gold medal? No, no. In fact, the treasure lies in the journey,
Yeah.
not where you get it after that. It's who you become, who you build, as from a parent standpoint, and from a coaching standpoint, the young man or the young lady that you built to be able to deal with life's challenges. Life is tough. Life is hard. And what I tell parents and what I tell other coaches is to remember that the beautiful thing about sports is that it's a microcosm of life. And
Yeah.
if you look at it that way, then sports becomes another platform to help educate your child. That's why I believe every child should do sports, because it is an opportunity for the child to discover who they are.
Yeah, amazing. This is really lovely being that. Yeah, apart from just the sport alone, they get to learn a whole lot of things which get kind of a very, very key in life when it comes to, yeah, showing off and they become better owing to the process, not just the trophy alone and a whole lot of things underneath. This is really, really amazing. And also you talk about building resilience without adding pressure. What is the difference between those two things in practice and how does a well-meaning parent
The child is going to face adversity on their own. Right. And so what the child is craving is allowing them to give them the freedom to make mistakes,
mm,
to give them the freedom to learn, because mistakes is part of learning. If a child when they're little, they put their hand on the stove, they're gonna get burned, and
yeah, yeah,
they're gonna learn. I can't do that, right? The parent doesn't necessarily have to say no,
yeah,
don't do
yeah,
that, because they just got burned. They realize it for themselves. Okay, no, I'm not gonna do that. Now, if you see like a continued like habit or something like that, then you go, remember what happened. Just remind you, when you touch a stove like that, it might be on and might burn you. However, you have to allow the child to navigate through those mistakes and not try quickly to make it right, or quickly to say you're wrong. Allow the child to make the mistake, and feel free and confident that they don't have to keep on looking at their parent
yeah.
to make sure that they're getting approval from them.
Mm,
And there's a lot of times where I've had to have parents go, "Hey, look, you guys are not allowed here because you're completely distracting the child,
yeah,
and what that's doing is putting me in a position where I'm not doing my job, and
yeah.
I'm hired to bring out the best in your child, but then, you're doing everything the opposite to help your child, and so that's building resilient children, having given them the opportunity to make mistakes, and for the parent to reframe those mistakes as learning opportunities.
Mm,
And
yeah,
that's how you build resilient children.
yeah,
The pressure comes when, hey, don't make that mistake again.
yeah,
Don't lose.
yeah.
So every fear that a parent has, and again, a lot of times it comes from a place of good intentions, but the fear takes over the parent, and then once the fear takes over the parent, then the child starts to understand what fear is, because a lot of times maybe
Mm,
the kids don't even know what fear is yet, but it's being taught because the parent is projecting their own fears on the experience.
yeah, amazing. Giving them the opportunity to make mistake and reframing that particular mistake, yeah, into the
Okay.
lessons and everything what them to learn. It's really, really amazing. Owing to the fact that, yeah, just having their mom there, the actions and inactions speak volumes to the way the children is going to definitely act, and it's a whole lot down. So lastly, if every parent listening could change just one thing today, one habits, one conversation, one thing, what would be the greatest one? On who did their child become?
I would, if I was a parent, and if I were to say one thing to all the parents out there that are listening to this, that I would quit not thinking about what you say before you say it,
Mm,
and to have the ability to think about what you're going to say, when you're going to say it, and how you're going
yeah.
to say it. To have that self control, to quit lacking self control, to have the self
Mm,
control to be able to be stable and predictable for that child
mm,
at all times. And with that, to make the child feel that they're loved whether they win or they lose, that their love is not based on performance.
yeah.
That comes with the experience. That's what I would tell parents, to quit saying things that are going to damage the child, because children, as much as they may sometimes just give you a blank look, they're really receiving
Yeah.
all the information,
Yeah.
and
So true.
they'll be able to tell you later in life what bothered them.
Yeah. True.
So as parents, we just got to be mindful of how when we were children, and how the way we wanted to be treated, and do the same
Mm.
thing with our children. Yeah.
Amazing. This is lovely. I'll then have it to kind of think through what they're about to say. But yeah, just more like looking back to when they were childhood. Would this particularly more like I'll have great impacts or with this damage? Yeah, being stable and being predictable. Yeah, it's really, really amazing. Thank you so much, Chen.
You are
So
so
where can
welcome.
I yeah, thank you. Also, where can my listener get the free ride home or method and connect with Ready Shop your community? Yeah? How can they reach out?
Yeah. So I have Instagram at Raising Champions Method, at Raising Champions Method. And if you go into any of my posts, it's Jean Lopez at Raising Champions. Then you'll see that any of my posts, you can comment the word rise. Rise is is what you put in the comment section, and you can download the free car ride home method. And it tells you, all the do's and don'ts of what to do in the car ride home, which I think for a lot of people is the only time that you have a dedicated time that you have with your children, because they're going to school or they have their other activities, and sometimes you don't have time to have dinner together. And so a lot of times just going from school or activity to activity in the car, that would be the dedicated time to talk to your children. So yeah, my Instagram is at Racing Champions Method, Jean Lopez, and comment rides. You'll get the free car ride home method. And then also, if you want to go deeper, we also have an app. It's called Racing Champions, and it's on Studio. And that app, it gives you the opportunity to be able to get me and Steven and all of my philosophy on any given situation, or personalize your experience with your child. And so if there's a time that your child wants to quit, you can talk to the app, and then the app will give you all the different options on how to deal with that situation.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Jane. This has been the robust information. Thank you for sharing your heart with us on Quit to Win. A
Thank you so
reminder
much.
that the most important coaching happen not just on the field, but the 5 minutes after it. And that character is the real championship is exactly what this audience needed to hear. And from audience who would love to reach out for the Instagram page and that of his website, check the show notes and you see the link to actually get to reach out. Remember, staying focused only.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure and honor to be on your podcast. Good luck.